Hello and welcome to the second part. In this part we're going to create a detail model like this one, so we can place them on my core. And this piece we're going to not fully procedurally make them, but I'm also going to show you a workflow where we can just model in Houdini. So not necessarily procedurally modeling, but just normal model workflows. So here in Houdini I have my core I made in the first part. And next to it, I will be starting out with a tube. And I will be modeling on the tube. So first of all, make sure the tube is in polygons and close the caps. Then I will be increasing the height like this. I might also increase the columns, because later we're going to take care of the low poly. And I can then use this for my modeling. What I would also prefer is to go here at the top and go to poly modeling. The letter C is here. So this means that in my viewport, if I press C, we have this menu. Didn't set this on poly modeling. Let's say we set this on clot. We have then a menu for clot simulation. But in my case, I want to go poly modeling. So I'd like to have modeling features. So what you could do is you can, for example, press on number 4, which will jump automatically to primitive selections, which you can also see here, number 4. And I can start selecting and hold C and then extrude. When you release the shortcut, you will have automatically an extrude node and the handles to then extrude the shapes. And this is how you could do some basic modeling in Houdini. So by just using either C, extrude, and then we can model. It's also good to know if we press Q, it will repeat the last node used. So if I press Q again, an extrude node is being added, and I can start modeling now quite quickly if I just spam the Q button. So I could make something like this, for example. So the only button I'm using now is like Q to place extrude nodes and to get a shape like this. You can also do, for example, edge selections is number 3 and then points is number 2. So if you want to bevel this, it's gonna be the same process. You're gonna double click on an edge, hold C, go to bevel and release, and the bevel node is here created with all the settings for beveling. You can also take this menu a step further, and next to my extrude there is an E, and next to my bevel there's a B. So these are shortcuts. So if I would type in CB, it automatically gonna take the bevel. So a quick demonstration of this. I'm gonna select the face and I'm gonna type in CE, and I will have automatically a extrude. So if you're just looking into modeling in Houdini, this is then a nice approach that you could use with this menu. So you can also go here and start editing these menus. You can take all the nodes that are available in Houdini and assign them to the menu. Then also here you can assign the shortcut, so you can customize your workflow into modeling. So as I mentioned also in the beginning, this is not a fully procedural approach, as if I would change the columns here, you can see that we can easily break this setup. So if you just want to model something, this is a great approach. Often I would first model something before I would make it procedural. So I have a general idea of what nodes I will be using and what structure I will be having. So once I have this piece, I will add some detail, and I will be using a boolean for that to add more detail. So we can add a box in this and then subtract. And if I can, for example, make an opening in here so you can look into this space, for example. I might also go back here and make this a little bit smaller. Like this, maybe. And what we could do also is then bevel this box. And so we don't have these 90 degrees there anymore. Then we can also bevel some parts on top. Let's take another tube. And I'm gonna place it up here. And I have to set it back to polygons and close the caps. And you can also save presets as default, so you don't always have to change this. Merge. And I'm gonna merge these two shapes then together in the boolean, and let's find a nice place to boolean. So maybe it's here. So maybe it's here on the side. And then I can then rotate this around with a duplicate. And I have to reset the pivot. And as you can see, we can then start rotating around. A nice trick here is that we can use the total numbers and drag and drop this here. So we relative channel reference. Then we say 360 degrees divided by the amount. So now we can do this. So if you want 12 of these booleans, then we can easily adjust this here. So you can create all sorts of variations and booleans in here, like this. But this is already then my first piece. So as you can see, for hard surfacing, this is always a general workflow that I would use, is to have first make a base shape and then boolean out the base shape until I have the result that I would like to have. Then further, I want to build a small protection piece around it, and I will be copy pasting the original tube so I have the correct sizes, and I will be booleaning out certain parts of this shape. So subtraction again, and we can then easily boolean pieces. So I will be using a merge here as well, because I want multiple boxes. We can also rotate the box like this, and copy the box again. So we have this result. And then let's see how this works on my shape here. So of course, it's perfectly in the center, and also I don't like this middle piece. And what I'm gonna do here is in the boolean here on top, I'm gonna set solid to surface. So it's not gonna create these parts inside, and I will be extruding this part in like this, and I will be closing the back just to keep my shapes closed. And now it's sort of like fitting better. And with the extrude node, I can then control this part. And you can always go here back to the boolean and start playing around if certain shapes are not aligned nicely, or you want to have variations there. So then I would like to have something inside this empty space that I created. And again, I will be starting by copying my base tube. And in this case, I'm gonna make it smaller. And I will also copy this one more time. And I want to have a variation that is something like this. And I'm gonna merge these pieces. And also this bottom piece, I want to mirror it to the top. So mirror, and mirror that piece around here then. Then adding a few details on this part. And I'm gonna copy paste this node, these two, and placing them here. And I'm actually gonna do the same system where I boolean out these shapes. So subtract and placing down the tube in the correct position. So you can grid this, or you can go through the whole thing. This, we can even create more. Let's say you want 10, then you have more of them. And then for the middle part, I'm going to use a sphere. I'm going to set the sphere to a polygon mesh, and I will boolean shape out of it. So boolean, and start with a box again, and subtract. And I'm going to cut off a top from the, I'm going to cut part of the top and the bottom, and by mirroring I will then have the same result and bottom. So you can then control this part. Then there's a second shape I would like to have, and I'm going to use a tube. Again, make sure it's set to polygon, and let's say I want to boolean out some of the side parts and merge these together first. So we have booleaned out these side parts, and here again I want to have it around the circle, so I will be duplicating it and resetting the pivot first. And same process as I just did, I'm going to copy the number into the rotation, and we're going to divide it by 360 degrees. So every time I have a copy, my system adjusts to it. So I have this piece. I noticed I also didn't fix the scale, so I can always afterwards use a transform node and scale this down. You can also change the scale if you think this is what you're looking for. And we might need to make some room here. So we can select this whole thing, and maybe we can start working in a subnetwork. And I'm going to give it a name like detail piece. And then we can start building up here, so we don't have too much nodes at one place. So to continue, I want to build then sort of a support piece where it sits on, like we have here. So we just build up this first part, and then I want to build up this support piece where it sits on. And I will be starting with a tube first. Again, polygon caps, and I want to set the columns to 3. And I'm going to make sure that the size is okay to what I would like to have. So maybe something like this. What I would do now is going to select these edges and bevel them. And I'm going to add some divisions to it. And an interesting setting here in the bevel is here convexity. If we lower this, you can see that it's sort of like reversing the direction where it's going. So if you want to have a bevel that's not perfectly round, like maybe this piece should have maybe go a little bit like this, we can go in this bevel and tweak that result. And then to create detail on this, you might guessed it, I'm gonna use the boolean here again and start booleaning in shapes. So let's take a tube. I just copied it, and I might increase this more, and of course subtraction like this. I'm gonna make sure that if I put these pieces together, that they are sort of like either fitting together with like a little bit space maybe. And then I'm gonna use another tube and start pulling out these parts here. So merging these again to see the result. And here I'm gonna use the same trick with the duplicate again. I want to rotate this based on total number, so copy paste this, referencing, dividing, and in my case I need 3 of them. And I'm going to copy paste the system here, and then we can easily do this, and I can copy it again, and maybe we have also smaller pieces over here, and maybe we have more of them, so I can find the number that I would like, and then we have created this piece. So this is like a quite nice way of working with the duplication, and I can keep copying the system to then create more details around certain parts that I would like. Then also here in my case this part then sits on top of another part, and using a tube again, putting a polygon mesh, close the gaps, increase divisions, and make it so it's big enough for that part. And we can also make this not perfectly straight, so it has some variation there, like this. And again, we'll be using a boolean here, and I will copy one of these setups, and boolean need to be subtract, and let's put them here, and let's say we need 10 of them, and then I can merge these parts together, and then we have this result. And then here for the final merge, let's put these two together, and to then just tweak the position, I'm gonna use a transform. And now we can still play around with scale. Maybe it looks like this. You can tweak it, you can even bend the shape if you'd like that. This is then this detail part. So this is always the output of this network, just to be sure that we are outputting this result. So also some of you noticed that we have used quite a lot of polygons. I didn't look too much at it, and that's because we're gonna use a voxel again. If you have been watching other videos from this series, you notice that I'm using the voxel often to get a high poly version. And from this high poly version, I would reduce it to the poly count I would prefer. So in here, we can set specific outputs to what number I would like to have as output. So as you can see here as an example, we want to have 1000 polygons, and indeed, if I look to the primitive number, it says 1000. Then next what I want to do is I want to place these pieces on my core. So I will be using my scatter points in a copy to point. So copy to points. I will be using then this in here. And you might notice that they're not placed correctly, and they're also quite big in scale. And I'm gonna just lower the scale here. A few ways then we can fix the correct orientation. Let's first of all place down a normal node, and I want to use my original shape and plug it in here. And I would like to save the normals in the points, so set this to points and view the result. And this result, I want to transfer that information here. So an easy way to do this is plugging in the normals over here. And now we have the correct orientation on each point. So now I go here to my copy to points, and I'm going to turn off the normals again. And we can see that there is some sort of orientation going on. They are not facing up anymore. And if I start rotating we can start making them facing in the right direction. So I have to fill in 90 degrees in the x-axis in my case. And now they are facing in the direction that I have for my sphere. So also here, we blasted some pieces away. So I would like to have the same pieces blast away on my points. And what I did is I hold in Ctrl Shift Alt, and I can copy this node, and we can see it's referenced to my original group range. So every setting in here is fully referenced to the other node. And I can see that we are lucky that this works out of the box. That we can see that the orange points are placed where everything is blasted away. So in here, I'm gonna plug in the group range here, and I'm gonna use this then here. We can also reverse this group node by using an exclamation mark. So let's see what works best. And I need the one with exclamation mark, of course. And then I see that I also still need to move them like this. So I have that result. So let's quickly merge them together to get a look. And then I have this result. And that was it for this part. So we made these detail pieces. So this is not made fully procedural, but has some procedural advantages and non-destructive advantages. And by using this menu, we can easily start blocking out shapes that we would want to. So next part will then be covering the texturing part and bringing it in Game Engine.